ताज इलाही सीस सजावण वाला, जिस दी होंद च शब्द गुरु दा जगे पुनीत उजाला। सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे, सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे, पुरनूर रहे, पुरनूर रहे। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। अनहत नाद बजे, आहत जलन बुझे, अमृत शब्द वरे, तन मन थीन हरे। सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे, पुरनूर रहे, पुरनूर रहे। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। धरती अंबर पवन समुंदर सूरज चंद सितारे, एक दी धुन विच गावन वावन राग इलाही सारे। सत सुहान सदा मन चाओ, सत सुहान सदा मन चाओ। एह गुरवाक उजाला, सदा रहे परगास रूप। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। चिंतक सिरजक रसक विनोदी, सहज निमर विसमादी। निर्मल निरपौ सच दा खोजी, विगसे आद जुगादी। रोशन हो वंडे रुशनाई, रोशन हो वंडे रुशनाई। दिखया पावन वाला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। जिथे मिलदी ओट ने ओटिया, पौंदे मान ने माणे। ओह दर उसदा, ओह कर उसदा, एह गुरवाक वखाणे। जिथे मिलदी ओट ने ओटिया, पौंदे मान ने माणे। ओह दर उसदा, ओह कर उसदा, एह गुरवाक वखाणे। ओथे नदर मेहर दी होवे, ओथे नदर मेहर दी होवे, जिथे नीच समाला। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। नानक नाम दा ताज इलाही सीस सजावण वाला, जिस दी होंद च शब्द गुरु दा जगे पुनीत उजाला। सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे, सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे। गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला, गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला। सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे पुरनूर रहे पुरनूर रहे गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला अनहत नाद बजे आहत जलन बुझे अमृत शब्द वरे तन मन तीन हरे सदा सदा पुरनूर रहे पुरनूर रहे पुरनूर रहे गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला धरती अंबर पवन समुंदर सूरज चंद सितारे एक दी तुन विच गावन वावन राग इलाही सारे सत सुहान सदा मन चाओ सत सुहान सदा मन चाओ एह गुरवाक उजाला सदा रहे परगास रूप गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला गुरु नानक देव विश्वविद्याला चिंतक सिरजक रसक विनोदी सहज निमर विसमादी निर्मल निर्भव सच दा खोजी विगसे आद जुगादी रोशन हो वंडे रुशनाई रोशन
We still have 1 minute, so yeah, I'm sorry about the awkward silence we have here.
That's fine.
So we'll just wait another minute and then we can start exactly at the scheduled time. Okay, great. All right, so good morning, all, and I welcome you all to the second session of month-long series on mental health for all, which is being organized by the Science Club, CyRox at Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, and Pale Blue Dot. So our speaker for today is, those who have joined us here, they already know a lot about her. She's Dr. Gail Brenner, and I would request Dr. Aarti to kindly introduce our speaker before she starts the interactive session. Aarti.
Yeah. Hello. Good morning, everyone, and good evening, Dr. Brenner. I consider it an honor and privilege to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Gail Brenner. Dr. Brenner is a clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience offering psychotherapy and an author with a passion for embodied conscious living. She did her PhD from Temple University, postdoc at the University of Florida, and a clinical internship at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Palo Alto, California. Through her therapy, Dr. Brenner helps people to return to their essential wholeness, to shed false identities and realize the truth who they really are. Her work lovingly illuminates our everyday humanness with deepest spiritual truths. Dr. Brenner has trained physicians to address psychosocial issues with their patients. She has special expertise working with older adults and their families, helping them bring compassion to the transition of aging, death, and dying. Dr. Brenner has also consulted with staff of assisted living and skilled nursing staff about these issues and caregiving. She's an expert in healing from early trauma. She works with individuals and groups and create for them the safe space needed for inner exploration. Dr. Brenner has not only published numerous articles on coping with stress and chronic medical illness, but is author of 2 books, award-winning The End of Self-Help and Suffering is Optional. As a blogger, she has featured on CNN, Huffington Post, Zen Habits, Tiny Buddha, Inspire Me Today, to name a few. Dr. Brenner loves exploring different cultures through international volunteering, today's event being one of them. Without any further delay, I would request Dr. Gail Brenner to start her session.
Very good. Thank you. What an introduction. Wow, my whole life flashing in front of me. Thank you so much. I'm delighted, more than delighted to be here. I traveled in India. I was just thinking when it was a little over, well, about 1.5 years ago. I spent a month in India and absolutely loved it there. So much to learn and explore. And I was just thrilled to be there and just feel that connection now of my travels there, being here with you today and hearing that beautiful music in the beginning. So today, I'm thrilled that you're having a program on mental health. It's so important, especially at this time, with COVID and all of the, everything that's come from that, the shutdowns and isolation and changes of all kinds. It's brought us a certain challenge in coping. And that affects our mental health. So how do we cope with challenging times? And how do we cope with the regular day-to-day? And that's why I called this talk, Finding the Calm Center in Everyday Life. We all want to be happy. I'm sure there isn't one person here who doesn't want to be happy. And for me, that was a driving force that has been and still is a driving force in my life, where I wanted to figure out, like, what is this thing called happiness? And, happiness, we get happy and we smile and it means that, but it also means a sense of well-being, a sense of confidence in our lives, that we can deal with the things that come through, the resilience to be able to cope well with situations that are unexpected. So finding that calm center, like, what is that? And we all want to be happy and we all want to feel good in our lives. And how do we make that happen? If we don't, on the poster, I saw that you had written a proponent of conscious living. And I love that. I am a proponent of conscious living. And what that means is to be aware in our lives as much as we can be moment to moment, so that we can make conscious choices about how we're going to be, how we're going to relate, how we're going to feel about ourselves, how we're going to be in our relationships, and the choices that we make in career and family and everything, really. And if we're not conscious, we're moving quickly. right? We're moving quickly in our lives, and we're not very aware of the thoughts and feelings that we have. And so if you are like very stressed about wanting to get things done and wanting to succeed, there's a lot going on in your inner experience, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in what's happening in your body. There's a lot there to be aware of. And when we're aware of what's happening in our inner experience, we have the opportunity and the invitation to be able to make conscious decisions about how we want to be. So what I've discovered about happiness and well-being is that it's not necessarily about the situations that happen in our lives. Sure, it's great, and at the beginning of a great relationship, or when you're in joy raising your children, or you've gotten accepted to a program that you were hoping to be able to go to. Those are events in life that most of us would think are bring happiness to our lives. But what I've found is that happiness has a lot to do with how we interpret things and the filter of our inner experience through which we see the world. So that includes our thoughts and our feelings or emotions. So what I notice is that what we give attention to is what we get in our lives. So if we give attention to trying to reach a goal, there's a pretty good chance we're going to get it, or we're going to at least make some progress along that way. And if we give attention to some of the more negative and challenging thoughts that run through our minds, we're not going to be very happy in those moments. So some of those negative thoughts are like negative thoughts about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. No one's going to like me. Or stories that run through our minds like, oh, these things happened in my past, so therefore I'm not going to be able to succeed in the future. We have expectations. We have judgments. There are preferences. I want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. And when we are attached to the content of the thoughts that are running through our minds, what I've found is there's quite a bit of suffering there. Our minds are the thoughts that run through our minds are for the most part based in fear, because we're humans in human bodies, and we're built for survival. Right? So what we want as a human in a body with a brain and a nervous system, we want to survive. And one of the ways that the brain helps us to survive is to think of all the negative things that can happen so that we're protected and ready to act. So we go into fight or flight. So those thoughts that automatically come into our minds, if we don't pay attention to them, they're often quite negative about ourselves or about other people or about situations in the world. We don't trust, we don't feel confident in ourselves, and we worry a lot. We want to have control, and we don't feel good if we don't have control over things. These are common everyday situations that people encounter all the time. And at the root of them, if you really analyze it, if you investigate very carefully, you'll see that there are thoughts that are running through the mind that you're believing to be true. Like, for example, I don't feel very good about myself, and I think I'm going to fail at everything I do. That's a thought, that's a common thought, and if we don't investigate it, we're going to believe that, and it's going to bring a lot of limitation to our lives. Everyone has the spirit to live fully. And that's what all of us at some level, we want that. We want to feel free. We want to express ourselves fully. We want to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. We want to live in joy. And the only way to do that is to recognize when the mind takes us away from those situations so that we can do something different with that. So if we're believing negative thoughts about ourselves and other people and the world, we're going to be missing a lot of what's possible and available in the present moment now. So it's very important for conscious living to be aware of the thoughts that are running through our minds and to question them, because a lot of thoughts that we have are highly conditioned, and that means that we develop them for the most part early on in our lives. So we learn that, like, if someone in our family criticized us a lot, then we might develop the thought pattern of criticizing ourselves, because we learn that that's what you do. If you've heard criticism from someone else, that might make you think, well, I'm not good enough, so I need to criticize myself. And that's an example of a pattern that might develop in the past. And then if we're not conscious of it and we don't investigate it, we go year after year, decade after decade, believing that thought, living in it as if it were true, feeling sad because we don't feel like we're accomplishing all that we know that we're capable of. We're living in a limited way, and we don't feel good in our everyday lives about ourselves and other people and the situations that we're in. But if we're able to investigate a thought like that, and a negative thought about ourselves, then we can realize that we don't have to use the content of that thought to define ourselves. So it brings up the question, like, who am I? Am I what my thoughts tell me I am? Am I what other people tell me I am? Do I take that to be the source of my identity? And when we question these often negative ideas about ourselves and other people, we find out that they're not actually absolutely true. And then we have options available to us to not believe those thoughts, to see them as limiting, and to know that there's something way more in the human spirit than what our thoughts tell us that we are. These conditioned thoughts, as I said, are negative, often negative and protective, like worrying thoughts, for example. They tell us about the worst case scenarios that could happen in the future. Well, I can't do this because that bad thing is going to happen. And the reality is, we have no idea what's going to happen. From one moment to the next, we just don't know what's going to happen. But for most of us as humans, it's not very comfortable to live in the unknown. In the unknown is where there's possibility and surprise and mystery and serendipity. All of that is available in the unknown. But when we believe our thoughts and we use them to limit all of our possibilities, we're missing out on all of what's possible for ourselves. So the only way to be able to know that these patterns are coming into play, these patterns of thought, the only way to know that is to be aware. So we need to slow things down and turn our attention inward, not to the world to please other people and make sure other people like us, or to make sure that we're safe and make sure that we're in control. These are all the things we do to kind of look out there in the world and try to make it okay. And that's a stressful way of being. Like, you might know that in your body, that feels stressful, to always be on guard, to always be trying to keep ourselves safe and to figure out everything in the world. And when really what we want to do is we just want to rest and be. We want to feel comfortable. We want things to be effortless. We want to be able to easily feel joy and connection in our lives and not be living in our heads. when we live in our heads, it's like the head is gigantic, right? And it feels like that's all of our reality. But outside of the mind is a whole reality that we're not aware of if we're stuck in our thoughts all the time. And often when we're very much in our minds and believing our thoughts, we feel stress in our body, or other emotions might come up. We feel fear, we feel sadness. There's this sense of contraction, or feeling limited and tight and tense in our bodies. And that doesn't feel, at least my experience is, that doesn't feel very comfortable. So when we start to investigate our inner experience and bring our attention in, away from all the stuff happening in the world, and in to see, like, what is my experience right now? That's when worlds open up and we have the opportunity to see what's going on inside of us. And a lot of times what we notice is that we're not very kind to ourselves. If we let patterns run automatically, we might have feelings of fear, and then we tell ourselves, oh, you shouldn't feel afraid. Or we criticize ourselves, or we push ourselves, and you should do better, and you shouldn't have done that, and you should have been better, been more organized, or succeed better. We criticize ourselves. Many of us have what we call the inner critic that runs in our minds. And we don't feel very good in our bodies and in our lives. It makes us sad and uncomfortable in life. But the only way to know when these patterns are happening is to take our attention and bring it in and begin to explore our inner experience. So what I want to do now is lead you into a bit of a guided meditation so that we can get a sense, like a real in the moment taste of what it's like to bring our attention into our inner experience. So I invite you, if you're comfortable with it, to close your eyes. And if that doesn't work for you, you can just bring your gaze down, just look down a little bit and soften your gaze. And just take a moment, just see what that feels like. So it's taking your attention away from seeing, from the world, from what's happening out there, to bring your attention in. And just begin to notice, first of all, your breath. So you don't have to do anything special with your breath, slow it down or anything. Just observe what's happening in your breath right now. What is the movement like in your body of the inhale and the exhale? So just notice, there's no wrong way to do this. It's just a matter of noticing what's happening in your inner experience. Maybe you notice that your breath is quick or tight, or maybe it's relaxed and deep. Maybe you just feel your breath in the front of your body and you're not aware that there's the back of your body also moves when you breathe. So we bring an attitude of curiosity to our inner experience, just to see what's going on. And right now it's touching, our attention is kindly touching just as the breath moves in the body. Just noticing with no judgment, no preference, just as it is right now in this moment. And now I want to invite you to be aware of what else might be happening in your body. Just anywhere. Is there any tension or any kind of energy that you feel in your body, anywhere in your body? Maybe you feel your feet on the floor. Maybe there's a little tension in your neck or your jaw. just touch your attention to the different parts of your body, just with curiosity, just to see what's happening right now in your body. And whatever you notice is just right. You might notice areas of tension or areas that feel open and relaxed, or maybe areas that feel frozen, like or dark, like I don't know, something's there, but I don't know what that is. It begins to be a very interesting exploration when we start to know what's happening in our bodies. And our body includes our nervous system. Are you in a state of activation? Are you relaxed? Or are you somewhere in between? And now move your attention to notice if there's anything happening in your emotional realm. So are there any emotions arising for you? Contentment, happiness, fear, anger, grieving, sadness, anything. So the invitation here is to be a welcoming presence for the emotions that are here for you right now. Not to judge them or push them away or make them wrong in any way. They're here. So the question is, how do we relate to our experience? Because our experience, the feelings in our body, the emotions, they are as they are. And so what is our relationship to them? And what I'm inviting you to do now is have a very kind relationship to your emotions. So whatever emotion is here, let it just be here, just because it is. And you might feel that that's a very kind way to be with yourself in this acceptance. And then noticing what's happening in your thoughts. Not necessarily the content of the thoughts, what you're going to do the rest of the day, and just all the commentary that goes on in the mind all the time. But what's the energy of your thoughts? Are there a lot of thoughts? Are they quiet? Does it feel pressured? Does it feel disorganized and confused and kind of all over the place? Just to notice. And again, just allowing your thoughts to be as they are. And again, there's a kindness that comes when we accept ourselves as we are. The inner critic might come in and say, no, that's not the right thought to be having, or you're not doing this right, or you're not doing this well enough. That's the inner critic. So we can notice, okay, there you are. And now I would love you to bring your attention just to this observing capacity that we all have. So there's breathing, there's sensations in the body, there are emotions, there are thoughts happening, and then there's this field of observing presence that all of this is arising in. This is so valuable to see because it gives you a bit of a gap between you and the thoughts and you and the emotions. When we're not conscious and we're not really aware of what's going on, we're very much in our patterns. The thoughts are running and the feelings are activated and we're in drama. We don't know what to do and we have these big problems that need to be solved. But just for now, we can see that we can step back and just observe all of that happening. There are thoughts, there are emotions, there are physical sensations, and we're just here as this field of open, loving presence, just aware of all of it. Great, and then we're just about to finish here, and just bring your attention back to the breath and just notice what this little exploration has been like for you. What did you notice? And again, everything you noticed was just right. You can't do this wrong. And then very softly look down, and then as you're ready, you can open your eyes and let the world come to you. Coming in through your vision. And just see if you can still recognize that sense of inner calm, that inner exploration, that just being with what's happening. Even when our eyes are open and there's more stimulation coming in through our eyes. Very good. And notice how you feel. Do you feel any differently? Do you feel the same? What did you notice?
I had a very interesting experience. I could feel a pumping sensation in my left arm when I was closing my eyes, and I just, out of curiosity, I kept opening, closing, and the moment I opened my eyes, the sensation it stopped. The moment I closed my eyes, the pumping again started. So I don't know, that was very strange.
Yeah, yeah. And those are the interesting, we notice all kinds of things. There's all kinds of stuff happening in the body. And we don't realize it until we become aware of it like this. Yeah, so I don't know what that means for you. And in a way, it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of noticing it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. With that kind of curiosity.
Yeah. So those who have joined with us, I mean, they are free to share their experiences with Dr. Brenner, and I mean, they can unmute themselves and then share what they felt.
Okay. Yes, I would really love to interact with you. So whoever would like to share your experience during the meditation, or ask a question, or just bring up something that's on your mind that I might be able to help you with, I would be happy to hear from you.
I
I think for me, it was a major insight to see or to hear from you that the default option for our natural state is negative bias. So we have to consciously work on that to see that we don't get swamped by the negativity because of the survival, aspect of the brain. So that was a great insight. Thank you very much.
Great, you're welcome, and thank you for sharing that, because if we don't look at the mind, we have no idea what's going on there. We're thinking a lot, but we're not really paying attention to what we're thinking and the effect that it's having on us. And when we start to get very curious about our inner experience, and you're talking about thoughts in particular, we can see that they are quite negative. And I invite you to not take my word for it. Look at your own thoughts, because this is the way to really understand this and have this be alive in your own experience. When you start looking at thoughts, that they're telling you all the things that are wrong, that will be wrong, what's wrong about you, what's wrong about other people. Not 100%, but a good part of it. And as you said, yes, it is because of the survival mechanism that's built into the body, and that includes in the brain. And along with that goes fear, and that's where we go into fight or flight, right? So in the brain is the beginning of emotions. In the primitive parts of the brain, we go into fight or flight. And everybody knows what it's like to feel fear or anxiety or, maybe something even stronger than that, like terror. That's built into the body. There's nothing wrong with those feelings at all. They're built into the body. It's a normal human experience to feel fear. But if we're not aware of our fear, it runs wild and it can affect a lot of our day-to-day lives. So when we are very aware of what's going on and we can notice that there's fear, like, oh, my body is tense right now, I'm feeling fear. We can take a moment, and I love to put like one hand on the chest and one on the belly and just take a breath. Like, oh, okay, there's fear happening right now. That's okay. I just take a breath. I center myself with that. And then you can just move on with whatever is in front of you. But it doesn't have to be fear driven. And that's where the opportunity is. Yeah, great.
I mean, fear is a good survival mechanism, and it is required in certain portion, in certain situation as well. But if, for example, if we don't have the fear of failure, for example, right? So, what a liberating thought it is that you
Yes.
You don't have a fear. Imagine a scenario that for example, many of the students are going for their graduation or post graduation, etc. So sometimes they are very scared of the exams, etc. But imagine that there is no fear of failure, and nobody is going to fail you at all. You or whatever project or whatever endeavor, whatever new thing in you life you are going to do in their life, and imagine that somebody has given you a blessing or somewhere that you're not going to fail at all. How liberating is that thought?
Yes. Very liberating. I'm sure everybody's feeling that liberation of not having that fear. And, and we have fear. So we need to learn how to relate to fear in a way that is functional and helps us live our highest and best selves. Because if we live in the fear and we believe what the fear tells us, because fear is all about no and can't. You can't do that or don't do that. It's too risky. It's too much. It's too big. We're never going to live our full selves if we pay attention to that fear. So we acknowledge the fear, and it's like I said, it's normal to feel fear, but we can make the choice then, okay, fear's here, but I'm going to put it aside. Hello, fear. I know you're trying to protect me, but there's something in me that wants to be expressed outside of fear, and I don't want to be limited by that. So I'm going to step away from the fear. It can be there, but it's not in control. It's not the thing that has the power. And what has the power is my desire to live in my fullest self in whatever that looks like. And and when fear happens, like in a tense situation, like during an exam, fear is not going to help you to do better at the exam. So to understand that the fear is there, and then to bring your full focus and aliveness and good-hearted intention into what you're doing, that's the thing that's going to make you do your absolute best. Fear is limiting. So it's good, and it doesn't mean it's a problem. It just means it's good to recognize that and know that there are other ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Yes,
ma'am.
I see Shehraz Chehel.
Yes, ma'am.
Kindly go ahead, please.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, like you said, you should take it easy on yourself and do not listen to your self-critic. But at what point does it become that at what point does it becomes that it's just an excuse for, not moving forward in your life and just take like not working to your fullest?
Yes, and that would be an example of not listening to the inner critic, because the inner critic is just like we were talking about fear. It's going to sabotage you and tell you what you can't do. And sometimes our inner critics are quite harsh. We say things to ourselves that we would never in a million years say to anyone else. It can really be something that just like cuts off the possibility of joy and happiness and fulfillment in our lives. So it's good to recognize, before we do this observation, people don't even know there's a strong inner critic there. It's what's been happening in their lives for a very long time, but they haven't realized it because they haven't investigated their thoughts to understand them better and to know what their thoughts actually are. But then there's this realization like, wow, there's a strong inner critic in there. And it can be, I hear what you're saying about it being an excuse. Yeah, so at some point we need to say, inner critic, you're not helping me. I understand that where you came from and what you're trying to do here, but it's not serving my fulfillment. It's not serving my peace and happiness. And to know that there's a part of ourselves that is not that inner critic. And we don't have to define ourselves by that inner critic. That's limiting ourselves. So we just go, thank you. I know you're trying to help me. You're trying to protect me. You're trying to have me not take any risks and fail, but you're not actually doing what I need you to do. So I'm just going to ask you to step back. I'm going to dial you down. I'm going to quiet your voice because there's something more alive in me that wants to be expressed. So that's the way to work with the inner critic.
So, ma'am, are you like suggesting that we shouldn't, listen to the inner critic at all, or we should listen to it and then realize that, it may be suggesting the idea more strongly than I need to.
Yeah.
If I'm fearful of that exam, to some extent, the inner critic is right that I should be fearful of the exam. I need to be studying harder. But that doesn't mean that what is like, to that extent, the inner critic is correct. But when it says that you're not good enough to pass this exam, that would be wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually a really good example. Yeah. So fear is, like you were saying, there are situations in life to be afraid of, but not to have the fear overpower you. Some people get paralyzed by fear and then they can't move forward. Or some people are so under, submerged under the fear that they can't do their best at what they're trying to do. So that's when the fear is overboard and it's too strong. And then we need to get ourselves back into the present. And the fear will take us, if we don't pay attention to the fear, the mind runs wild, worrying about every bad scenario that can happen. So it's useful then to take a breath, like, okay, I hear you. I know this is a tense situation. I'm just going to come back. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to be present in my life. I'm going to be focused on what's here and not what's in my head.
On the inner critic, can I share a small story for 2-3 minutes, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Mr. Nal, I would request Himanshi because she has been trying to say something for a very long time. So after you're done, yeah, sure, please go ahead. After you're done, Himanshi, I would request you to please go ahead with your comment or whatever you want to share. Please, Mr. Nanil.
Thank you. Apologies to Himanshi first. I didn't know about it. Anyway, so I'll tell you a small story. So there was a woman, she was divorced. And as you know, when you are in divorce state of mind, the situation is extremely bad. So she somehow 6 months or 12 months passed and somebody told her, why don't you move on, right? So she went into a dating site. She found somebody very good looking, good person. So they agreed to meet in a restaurant for that night. And after 10 minutes, this gentleman gets up. He says, sorry, I don't think it is going to work. My apologies. And he just leaves. Now, this person then calls her very close friend and tell her what has happened. And then the friend tells, oh, what do you think, by the way? How can you expect such a good-looking person to even look at you? This is all you. It's all your fault, etc. Now, if I tell you that this is a close friend, people must be wondering how come a close friend like that could comment like that. But if I tell you that that was the same lady talking to herself, then we all would agree. So we talk to ourselves in too critical way at times, and we are too critical of ourselves. Imagine if the same situation happened to our friend, how sympathetic we would be, but we don't show that sympathy and compassion towards ourselves.
That's exactly right. That's a beautiful example. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's about kindness, compassion, treating ourselves the way we would treat our best friends or our children or our family members. And we can, if we don't pay attention, we can treat ourselves very harshly. So there's an opportunity there to bring kindness to ourselves. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Himanshi, if you're still there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity first. My question is that how to meditate for a long time? Like I'm a student, but I couldn't meditate for a long time. And secondly, how to direct relation with the concentration?
Himanshi, your voice is cracking. Can you please type your question in the chat window and then we can maybe read out it to Professor Gale?
Okay, ma'am.
Shall we wait or go on to someone else? Or?
Yes, if somebody else wants to. I'm really sorry, Mr. Sharma. If you want to add something, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let's see, is she doing that?
Mm.
No, okay. So another thing that I want to just focus on. So when we realize all the unkind thoughts that are going on in our minds, and we don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to criticize ourselves. We want to be more accepting. There's the opportunity then to bring our attention back to the present moment. Like if you're in an interaction with someone and you're actually trying to talk, a friend, let's say, and there's two of you and you're talking to one another, and then you're in your head and you're thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow or what I'm going to say next, or I don't like what I'm wearing, or, you're in your head, you're not actually there in that interaction relating to the person. You might be there a little bit, but you're not there fully. And then it interferes with the intimacy in the relationship. So when we get out of our heads, we get into the reality of the life that's here right now. Our minds are going to create pictures and stories and take us into the past and into the future and everywhere but right here. And when we don't listen so much to what the mind is telling us, we have the opportunity to be here and available and open to feeling happy and joy and notice the little tender things that happen in life and be way more connected to people. If we're not present in our lives, it's very hard to be connected to other people. And we feel that, right? And so there's the opportunity to just it's very fresh when we're here in the moment. So you can do experiments like look at someone who you know very well, but look at them like you've never seen them before. This is like a new relationship or a new opportunity to interact with someone you don't know. And then you're there very freshly and alive and open and curious. So that's another opportunity that's always there and available for us.
I see there's a question in YouTube window by Takshima. Okay. She asked, what is the ideal time to meditate daily?
Sorry, what does the...
What is the... I'm sorry for the background noise.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll just let the vendor go away and then I'll speak.
Okay. Oh, it was a vendor. I wasn't sure.
Let me convey the query. I think the query is that what is the ideal time for meditation, or
the ideal time
for meditation?
I
Is there
say
any?
the time that you're going to do it is the right time. Yeah. So if it's morning, if it's, sometime in the middle of the day, if it's right before you go to sleep, any time is a good time for meditation. And by meditation, I'm assuming you mean like a formal meditation practice. A formal meditation practice is a very good support for conscious living because it slows us down. And it's a very structured way to bring our attention away from all the stuff that's happening out there in the world and away from the content of our minds and back into our present moment experience. So if it's for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, it doesn't matter how much time it is, but it's the commitment and it's the willingness to support yourself in being present in your life. So any time is a good time. Other people may tell you something different, but that's my view of it, that whenever you're going to do it, that's the good time.
So
Are
if
there any other questions? I would love to hear.
I would just like to, request you to describe in a little more detail the fact that most of the time we live inside our heads. See, we don't even realize we will make an attempt to live better if we realize that, most of the time we are living inside our heads.
Yeah.
So, can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, sure. One of the reasons that we live inside of our heads a lot is that it's a way to distract from our feelings. So if we're up there thinking everything, we don't know what's happening in our bodies or in our emotions. And for many of us, that's a difficult area of our experience, is to feel our emotions and be aware of what we're feeling. So all of that thinking can be a distraction for what we're actually feeling. And if we want to feel we're naturally whole, we're integrated, we're part of the whole of life. Everyone is. That's the absolute truth of it. And part of knowing that is to accept all of our experience, and that includes our emotions. So if we stop thinking, or if we bring our attention away from all the thinking, and you might have noticed that in the guided meditation that we did a little bit ago, there are feelings there. So then the question becomes like, what do I do with these feelings? So if I'm not thinking so much, and then I kind of move my attention away from all the thinking, and now, oh my goodness, I'm so anxious, I didn't realize it, or I'm angry and something happened today and I don't know what to do with this anger. Then we have an opportunity again to bring a tremendous amount of kindness to our inner experience, where we notice what we're feeling, and we have acceptance with that feeling, and we allow it to be there. And we allow it to be there. We give it the space to be. Feelings come and go in waves. They come, they kind of have a peak, and then they'll subside if they're given the space to be able to do what they need to do. When we push feelings away, they just go underground. We might call it the shadow, or they go out of our conscious awareness, and they don't go away. They're just out of our consciousness. They're out of they're not integrated into our daily lives, but they're still there. So if someone feels depressed or sad in their daily life, there's probably sadness there that needs to be investigated, that needs to come out of the shadow of the unconsciousness, and to be curious about, like, what is this sadness? What is this anger that's coming up in me? And I can tell you from my own experience, because I've done this a lot and I've worked with lots of people, and bringing their emotions back into awareness and not listening so much to their minds, it can be a challenging thing for a period of time. But then we get so grounded in ourselves, we know ourselves so well, that we can be very, very in our lives. We're not confused. It's like it helps us to not be so confused when we're grounded in ourselves and we know how we feel. And then those feelings can be a guide, because, you know, if we feel very sad, for example, that may mean there's something that needs attention in us. Or someone said, when we're afraid, that's a sign that maybe something, you know, we need to put our attention there. And so when we get out of our heads, we open to our feelings, and we open to all the little, you know, joys and opportunities in life that we don't see when we're busy in our heads. So I'm not saying do this, but I'm saying offer yourself the opportunity to experiment with your own experience. Like, do something different. Go to the edge of your comfort zone, whatever that might be, and try something that's a little bit over your comfort zone, to something new that might be very exciting for you. It's very interesting to know that the physiology in our bodies when we feel fear is very similar to the physiology in our bodies when we feel excitement. So you might think that you're afraid about something, but it might be that you're excited about something new and something unknown. So that would be another way to experiment.
There's a question from Nishant. Nishant, can you please go ahead?
हेलो मैडम, आप आई को जान नहीं दिया, मैं को बोलना है।
Nishant, you are unmuted.
चल जाऊंगा।
Nishant has raised his hand. Nishant, can you please go ahead with your question?
Madam, I am audible. Hello, madam.
Yes, beta.
Yes.
Madam, I want to ask that what should we do if negative thought is coming on our mind? What should we do? Hello, madam. I am audible.
Yes. I got your question.
Hello, madam.
Yes, Nishant, I understood your question.
Madam?
So, Gail, his question is, how do we get rid of negative thoughts? Like, if there are negative thoughts coming in somebody's mind, how to get rid of those?
Yeah. And what I found is it's very hard to get rid of them. You know, if we could get rid of them, we would, and then life would be easy, and we wouldn't be having a discussion like this, and we would all be going along with all our positive thoughts. But negative thoughts are, it's not something to get rid of, but the way that I think about it is it's something to lose interest in. So what we give our attention to is what we get, that's what grows. So if we give attention to our negative thoughts, we're going to get a lot of negativity in our lives. If we give attention to noticing the good in people, we're going to have a completely different experience. If we give our attention to just what's here, what I'm feeling through touch, through vision, through hearing, just really in my senses, when I go out in nature and I have a beautiful walk in nature and I take everything in through my senses, the negative thoughts might be there, but I'm not paying attention to them. So it's really about bringing your attention away, shifting your attention away from those negative thoughts. And one very simple way that I love to do that is to take a breath, take a conscious breath. Like if you're stuck in thinking, very tense, very negative, very fearful, a lot of anxiety, then you notice that's what's happening in your experience. Then you go, wait, no, I want something different. And I put a hand on my heart, I put a hand on my belly, I take a conscious breath. And it's like a reset. It's like, okay, I'm out of my mind now and I can start again in a fresh way. So there are many techniques, and breathing is one of them, and senses, knowing what's happening in all of your senses, hearing, smelling, tasting, seeing, and just bringing your attention there, feeling your body. That's another way to move your attention away from your thinking. And then eventually, this is my experience, the thoughts begin to subside. You know, I think about the thoughts being the servant and not the master. If we pay attention to our thoughts, they're going to be in control. But we, in our aliveness and in our zest for life and in our clarity, that's where we want our control to be. And thoughts can help us. Thoughts are very useful. So we want our thoughts to be there when we need them. So we shift our attention away from the negative thoughts and into the aliveness of the present moment. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, very well put. So Himanshi, she had trouble connecting. She has sent me the questions she wanted to ask.
Okay.
She wanted to ask, as a beginner, like she's only 19 years old, as a beginner, how can I meditate for long hours, and is there a way to increase the concentration while meditating? Because that's the most common problem, that you are unable to concentrate while trying to find the peace.
Yes. Okay. And when she says meditation, she means like a formal meditation practice, like
I
when you
hope
sit.
so. Yes, I hope.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Okay. So yes, what happens when we sit and meditate is we notice what's been happening anyway. So we sit and be quiet, and we want to be quiet. And what happens? The mind starts going crazy, and we feel all this stuff in our bodies, or the emotions start coming. That's perfectly normal. That's what happens. So the goal of meditation is not to quiet your mind and not to have no emotions and not to find some bliss state. These are not the goals of meditation. And there are other people who speak about it different ways. So I only speak about it the way I know for myself and for my teaching. So meditation is an opportunity to be very conscious of our experience, to slow things down, to notice what's happening in our experience. And this is the laboratory for living a conscious life, because a conscious life is just meditation as much as possible, sustained meditation over our whole life. So we're conscious of what's going on in our lives. So a formal meditation practice is a beautiful support for that. So I would recommend starting small. Start for 5 minutes, and it doesn't matter how many thoughts you have or what feelings are there or what happens or how many times you forget to be aware because you get lost in your thoughts. That happens a lot. So be very kind to yourself. It's okay to get lost in your thoughts. And then you notice that, and then you bring your attention back to the breath. And then you get caught up in your thoughts again. And then you wake up, you notice that, and then you bring your attention back to the breath again. And over, just make it a very easy, flowy process for 5-10 minutes. And then eventually, what happens, and it may take some months actually of meditating regularly every day, eventually things start to quiet. You notice like, it's a little quieter today, than it's been in the past 3 months or so. And that's a beautiful thing when you notice that your thoughts are starting to calm, and you're beginning to feel a little more open and a little more available, a little more spacious. There's a spaciousness here that's available always for us to recognize. And it's our thoughts that keep us from recognizing that. So when we keep shifting our attention back to the breath and back to this experience of being aware, eventually that becomes a very familiar experience and easier to do. So 2 things about that: start small and be very kind to yourself as your attention gets caught up in your thoughts. That's a great question. Thank you. I'm sure other people have that question.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Yes, Nishant.
Madam, I want to say that, madam, when we are in depression, what we should do to feel better at
In
that
depression?
time? When we are in depression.
Yeah.
I think the question is when we are feeling low, I would say. Depression is a very extreme sentiment.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. When you're feeling depressed or low or not in a good mood or things are blah, you're just not feeling good. Yeah. So how do you handle that? Again, these are really great questions. So first of all is to notice, in these times, it's a little bit harder, but again, I would say, bring your attention in and see what you're feeling. See what's happening in your body. See if there are thoughts. There might be a whole bunch of negative thoughts going on that you hadn't realized. And then you'll go, one time I tracked my thoughts for a whole day. And by the end of the day, I said to myself, no wonder I haven't been feeling very good, because there were so many negative thoughts running around. I hadn't realized it. And so once you understand how much negative thinking there is, you can shift your attention away, you can get quiet, you can just bring your attention to your breathing. Depression itself can sometimes mask other feelings. So there might be, anger or fear or some other feeling that wants to be felt, that's there, that hasn't been explored yet. If you're feeling depressed or sad or low for a while, I definitely encourage you to get support, to talk to someone about it. It's not something just to sit with and try to muscle through on your own. The more I do this work, the more I realize we all need support. We all need someone to talk to sometimes. We all need someone to lean on. So, if you're feeling badly for some period of time, seek out a friend, a family member, someone older, somebody you respect, a teacher, and or a counselor if that's available to you. Don't hesitate to talk to someone who can help you sort things out, because when our minds and our feelings get all tangled up, it can be very confusing, and we need help to untangle that. So be very kind to yourself in the times when you're not feeling well, and a lot of self-care. Do things that make you feel good, like take a walk in nature, and not just, in your mind, but really let yourself feel the sun on your skin and look at the leaves and feel your feet on the earth. Those kinds of that kind of awareness can bring you back to the present moment, where you can find a greater sense of relief. Yeah, thank you again for that question.
Gail, we have a flood of questions, and
flood?
unfortunately, yes. And when you do, I can see at least 3 questions. I can see 2 people raising their hands. So,
Okay.
but we are out of time, actually. I think everybody enjoyed a lot. If you don't mind,
okay.
I'm okay with it, but I am sure you have prior commitments.
Actually, I'm fine. If you want to go another 10 minutes or so, I'm fine with that.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I'd be happy to. Sure.
So there's one person in the...
Yeah.
Can I ask meanwhile?
Sure. I don't know who that is, but yes.
Yes. One thing.
Oh, Artie. Okay.
Yes. I want to know how someone can cope up with the extreme fear of, falling sick.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So what to do with an extreme fear of falling sick?
And so much so that you feel that you have symptoms, of the problem which you fear getting.
That's a fear to be explored. Everything I've said about fear applies to that, because fear creates a scary picture of the future. So with this particular one you're talking about is, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to be debilitated. I'm going to be in a lot of pain. I might die. All these horrible things are going to happen to me. When right now, there's no evidence of that. Like if you look at your body now, if you're sick, go to the doctor and get it checked out for sure. But if the fear is there, and the anxiety can be so strong that it creates symptoms, but it's not a real illness, it's the anxiety. So it would be important to recognize again that that's a very strong fear. And usually a fear like that, ultimately at the core of it is a fear of dying, a fear of death. And that's a beautiful place to get to, what a fear of death, because it invites this question about this deeper question about what lives, what dies, who am I? When I die, what does that mean that I'm going to die? All these deeper spiritual questions. They're beautiful questions. But I think for someone who has that fear, that's the core of it. Like, am I just going to be miserable and disappear? And is this just going to be my life? It's an opening into a deeper investigation of these bigger questions about life and death. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Aarti, Gail, I see a hand raised in the audience. I'm going to unmute iPhone.
iPhone, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for the opportunity.
Sure.
Actually, I wanted to ask a question. I have read a book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power
Yes.
of Now,
Yeah.
where he very well explained about these meditation techniques and told us to be present in this very moment.
Yeah.
But my question is, if we are present in this moment, in the very now, then shouldn't we think about the future perspectives? Shouldn't we thinking about our goals, like to plan our future, or we should be just like what's going right now? And if it is like that, why Eckhart goes to that Ofra for printing his book? If he want to be in present, then he should be present, not going for the publication of the book.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a natural, I love that question. There's a natural intelligence when we're fully present. So I've heard him speak about this, where he just felt moved to write a book. I've written books. I feel moved. You feel moved to do that, not out of fear, not out of a desire for recognition, not out of status, not out of money. There's just a natural movement of life through this particular body that says that it's time to write a book. And we're all different. We're all diverse. And we all have our own particular life stream. So the truth of what's of your being, of what's to be manifested through you, it's unique for all of us. And so we listen. It's a matter of not making things happen, but I'll qualify that in a second, but doing an inner listening, like, how am I being moved right now? How am I being moved right now? And then the mind becomes the servant and not the master. Then I have this movement. It's very clear. I'm supposed to write a book. And now I'm going to write an outline, and I'm going to figure out my schedule, and I'm going to do all the practical things to make that happen. So there's a goal, but the goal doesn't come from anything conditioned. It comes from something completely natural. It's part of the natural flow of life.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it did to me, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
There are 3 hands raised in the audience, but I would give preference to the people who have asked questions in YouTube, because they have been raising questions for a long time.
Okay, great. I'll hear one of
There are a
those.
couple of
Sure.
questions there. One is about children psychology. I'm not sure if I'll just read out the question to you.
Yeah.
It says that how most of the time children, they feel that parents are the reason for their miseries, and they have negative thoughts about their parents. How, as a parent, I could stop that from being happening?
Yes. It's such an important question. You can't stop the child from having the negative thoughts about it, but you can just put your whole heart and soul in being the best parent that you can be. And one of the best things, and I'm saying this not from a cultural point of view, because I don't know your culture that well, but from a psychological point of view, the best thing you can do as a parent is to be very attuned to your child. And by that, I mean, listen without judgment to what the child says, feedback. Oh, that's how you feel. That's what you're thinking. Give the child a lot of positive feedback, encouragement, and freedom to be who he or she wants to be. So to be very connected, very attentive, very attuned, and also giving that sense of freedom to the child. So I don't think any of us come out of our childhoods with all positive thoughts, but the more that we're loved and cared for and given that that loving attention, that helps us in our development as we grow up in life.
Yeah. As a
thank you.
parent, I could relate. Yeah, that's a very nice suggestion. So one more question from a student on YouTube.
Yeah.
Does sleeping schedule affect our mental health? Because he is a student and he wakes up long hours at night. So does that affect your sleep pattern and what time you're sleeping, what time you're getting up? Does it affect your mental health?
Sure. Like many people who have some kind of psychological problem, they have sleep difficulties. And some people who, if we're under stress, it would be normal to have trouble sleeping, a night here or there. Different people need different amounts of sleep. So that's something also to be aware of. But it's good to get into a routine to get off of your devices when you're at the end of the day and let yourself relax and find a way as much as you can to get as good a night of sleep as possible. And it does, if we go night after night without enough sleep, we're in sleep deprivation and it's not good for our energy and our clarity. So yeah, definitely something to pay attention to.
I would like to unmute Nandini Teji. So please go ahead. She has raised hand.
Okay.
Nandini, kindly go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, Dr. Brenner.
Good morning.
So, ma'am, I was just reading a book written by Hans Rosling. It was entitled as Factfulness. So he's written that that in order to prevent any over dramatic expression, we should just go through the statistics. We should see the facts that whether the world is progressing or it's just lacking behind. So most of the time I've seen people who just give debates or who especially present themselves on TEDx, they provide a fact which is almost going in a negative way. So they themselves use that over dramatic expression to sway the audience. So what is it? Is over dramatism necessary to persuade the audience that yes, to make them influence, or is it just another kind of hype?
Well, when people get up and give TED Talks, they have a point of view and they're trying to get that point of view across. So, and they want to do that effectively. So of course they're going to, say it as strongly and as maybe dramatically as they can. But I think our job, because we get so much input, right? And it's called news. It's not always news. It's often someone's opinion. And with the way things are with technology these days, we have so much input. And I think it feeds the mind, and I really recommend people taking breaks, not being on your phone all the time, not constantly listening to news. Because a lot of it is stressful and news is often negative. I don't know what it's like in your country, but we don't have a lot of good news that they don't call that news. If your mind is being filled with all that negativity, it's not going to help your inner well-being. So choose wisely what you pay attention to in the media that you let into your
How do we have to filter the things that how do we have to filter? There's so many things around in the world. So just to prevent the negativity, how do we have to filter?
You trust yourself to know, some things are facts, but even the things that 99% of us think are facts, other people think aren't facts. Yeah. So it's an endless conversation, what are the facts? So my thought about it is that we need to take care of ourselves in these, because we can get very attached to views and who's right and who's wrong. And then we have this division, right? We have, I feel this way, the other feels this way. And then that's a source of conflict.
We often digress from the content.
That too. So I would trust your inner wisdom about what you need to take care of yourself around that.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
There's one interesting question on YouTube. I would like to go ahead and read it.
Please.
Question is, why does the motivation which comes from song and movies, it lasts for a very small period of time? And yeah, that happens to me all the time. When I'm listening to the music, I'm all motivated to wake up early in the morning, go out and have exercise, but that just lasts for a very short period of time.
Yeah. And why is that? You know, there's that burst of motivation that comes from a particular kind of music, maybe, or the movie, but it's not something that's like integrated into the core of our being. So what we might do in a situation like that is see what it is that we enjoy about that. You know, like, do you enjoy that you're, you know, put on some music and you get up and you work out in the mornings or something like that? Just see what it is that really resonates for you. Like, I want to be healthy, or I want to feel in control of my life, and make that be more of a priority, so that it's not just related to just the movie or the music, but it's something that comes more from the core of who you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I still see 3 hands raised. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you are free for those questions and discussions.
Let's go for it.
That's so nice of you. That's so nice
Yeah.
of you. So Namika, I have unmuted you. Kindly go ahead and yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, I would like to ask that if we are in continuously in stressful situation, and after like we get a new that we are not stressful, but we feel that like we are, something is lagging behind. Like we decided that we'll not take stress of anything, let it be. So if we are decided this thing that we will not take stress of it, but still something is there ki we should go behind, and stress is still coming.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like we are in idea of more in the idea of depression than in depression.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we're part of the animal world as a human, right? And animals, like if you picture an animal being chased in the, you know, in the plains of Africa, and then it's, you know, because it's prey, you know, there's a predator chasing an animal, it's incredibly stressed, it's running for its life. And it's like, it's in fight or flight, it's very tense. And then let's say the predator gets distracted or just leaves, and it's a safe situation once again. And what happens to the animal is it shakes almost uncontrollably. It shakes off the stress that finishes the cycle so that it's relaxed again until the next time that it happens. That's what happens in the animal world. Humans, we happen to have very active minds, and that keeps our stress chronic and sustained. So if there's a lot of stress, even when the situation doesn't seem very stressful, but we feel stressed within ourselves, that would be a good opportunity, first of all, to notice if there's some thinking going on that you haven't recognized before, and just tell yourself that that's finished, it's not true, it's not helping you right now. And then physical exercise might help, just shaking a little bit, stretching a little bit, doing something physical to get that feeling of stress to move through the body, just like animals do. Okay, thank you for that.
Shehraz, kindly unmute and please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'd like to ask a question. So I happen to have friends that are professional athletes. Like I had my best friend and she was a national athlete. So before,
Sorry, I
like,
didn't understand that. A national
athlete.
Athlete, okay.
Yeah, and before races, she used to like get really stressed, you know, to the point of she's stammering and sweating profusely. But at the moment that, you know, she was at the starting line, all of that would vanish suddenly.
Right.
And there
Mhm.
she could only like see the finish line and
Yeah.
nothing else. And that would be like a sort of a like different version of her. And how would you like explain that? You know, being stressed at a moment and then, you know, like changing it all together. Would it be really a bad thing at all, or is it a good thing?
I don't know if it's bad or good. you know, athletes have, especially at a very high level, they're very, part of the coaching is, you know, how to handle those moments. And it sounds like for your friend, there's a big difference between anticipating, she has anticipatory anxiety is what it's called. It's like fear before the thing happens. But then right at the moment when it's ready to happen, she's like in the zone and the anxiety goes away. So it's a change from anticipating something happening to actually being in it. And I'm sure we've all had the experience of, I know I have a lot, of anticipating something and seeing the worst case scenario. And then when the thing actually happens, it's not nearly as bad as what our thoughts told us it was going to be. So that's an example of how our thoughts go negative on us. But, you know, that we can recognize, like in the moment, there's something very fresh and unique that's happening. And I think that's part of what makes her a good athlete, that somehow that anxiety falls away just at the moment when she needs all of her attention to focus on what she's doing. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mr. Anil Sharma, kindly go ahead and
Yeah, thank you, Bindya. Madam Gail, I mean, I just again a sort of story on my side.
Okay.
I mean, I see a lot of disparity between the physical world and the mental world as far as physical hygiene or mental hygiene is concerned. Let me share you with a very small story. You know, I went for a dinner to one of my friend's places. His 5-year-old son was taking, evening, cleaning his hair. He went to the bathroom, he went up the stool and somehow he fell down. So immediately he just cried for a minute and then he took out a Band-Aid and put the Band-Aid on his wound. Now, physical injuries are very rare, and I wouldn't say rare, less as compared to the mental injuries we encounter every day, you know, all of us. But nobody teaches us how to handle those mental injuries as far as my part of the world is concerned. So I think there is a lot of disparity between the physical hygiene and mental hygiene. And maybe I saw Aarti has given your website. So I would encourage every one of the listener to go over to that website. And I'm sure, because I know in India, we are lagging behind a lot and we actually learn from, some, personal experiences, etc., which may not be good or bad. So mental health is extremely, extremely important and mental hygiene is extremely important. So I guess here, your website will be of great help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's about our quality of life. It's important, and it's not the first thing that we think of. I mean, you might think our physical health is more important. I mean, we have to be alive and functioning and as healthy as possible. But our mental health that's why you're having this program. It has everything to do with our quality of life, with how we are in our lives. And our lives are precious. This is it. Like right now, this is your moment of your life. You aren't in the past or the future. You're living your life right now. This is it. So then the question is, like, how are you going to live this moment? And I love that it's possible that we can investigate our inner experience. We can figure out why we're not feeling as well as we really want to be feeling, and we can make some changes. So this is what I write about all the time, as I think Aarti knows, which is where we met. She's on my mailing list and just made a connection with me. Everybody here is interested in this, or else you wouldn't be here today. And it's beautiful that you're interested in it. And there's a ripple effect, because as you look at yourself and figure out how you can be better, feel better in your life, it ripples out to everyone you know, your family, your friends, and it has an effect on everyone. So it's an important endeavor. It's a fascinating interest, and it's about our life. So it makes it very important.
Thank you so much. I mean, it was a perfect day of the perfect start of a day. I mean, Saturday morning here, and that was so nice.
Good.
Dr. Aarti, please, if you want to add something to it.
Yeah, no, I am kind of a bit overwhelmed with the whole thing. It has been a great session, Dr. Brenner. I am sure all our audience would have found it very helpful. They would have gained a new perspective, to look at things. I, of course, know her. I would recommend everyone to read her book, which I have read, The End of Self-Help. It's kind of, a book to which I refer again and again, many times. So I'm sure you will learn a lot. If you feel that your questions are left unanswered today, or, you will really gain a very nice perspective to look at things. So I would like to thank Professor Brenner also for agreeing, very kindly to be part of our session, and for being so liberal with your time when we were saying 45 minutes plus 15 minutes, and it's almost 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
Thanks a ton, Dr. Brenner.
Yeah. And
it has
thank
been
you.
really
Thank
a
you for
very nice
inviting
session.
me. Thank you so much. It's a delight, and I'm thrilled. And I can tell you, as soon as I can travel again, I'm definitely coming to India.
Oh, sure,
I can't
sure.
wait to
Yeah.
come back. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
sure. Yes,
Yeah.
anytime.
So thank you for inviting me. And I love your interest. You have a keen interest for this topic, and it's beautiful to see. Thank you.